Welcome everyone to the Year 12 Parent Care Information. This was an event we would normally have in school in the performance hall, but due to current restrictions then that's just not possible. So perhaps the next best thing is an online version. So the plan over a very brief presentation is to look at a number of areas that I think are important for Year 12, and it's not only for students but for parents and carers, about how they can maximise their time this year, and at the end of the year's process, then how they can be in the best position to continue into Year 13, but also looking as well towards the end of their 2-year stint at St Robert's. Then I'd like to start with looking at the sixth form team. Then very happy that we have a really strong sixth form team. So myself as head of sixth form in both year groups, then 12 and 13 we have a head of year and also an assistant head of year. The vacancy at the moment for the assistant head of year, Year 12, will be filled by the end of November, and it's Mr. Dent who takes the lead on Year 12 issues. Also in the sixth form team we have Miss Convery then, who leads on the 14 to 19 information, advice and guidance, and that covers a whole remit of information. And also Miss Convery looks at the EPQ project, which I'll talk about later on, which is a fantastic opportunity then for students then to gain invaluable research skills, but also to show real passion for their subjects. Also we have then Mrs. Green, who's our attendance officer and also leads on careers advice in sixth form, and Miss Lee is the administrator then for all things to do with sixth form. Looking at then our sixth form, we are, I suppose you would call primarily then a traditional A-level college, with the vast majority of our students will go on to university. Then at the moment that's around about 80%, which is a fantastic number then for the size of our college. And last year was no different. To give examples, that 145 students went to university, and they went to 29 different universities countrywide, and that was from anywhere from St Andrews in Scotland then all the way down to the south coast. And our students went to study 41 different courses. Now bearing in mind that at A-level we offered just over 30 courses, then our students become more diverse in their choice of university degrees. And of those students, then an increasing number, now up to 37%, are achieving places at highly competitive courses and universities in Russell Group. Not least as well, we have students then who are every year successful for Oxford and Cambridge, and medicine, dentistry and veterinary science. It's so wonderful to see that our students are ambitious then to achieve what they want to achieve, and in terms of careers or university degrees. In terms of the students, what I want from students really for sixth form was the idea about independence and responsibility. Then it starts with the organisation of their work. We are very fortunate in that we have developed then with some very clever developers then in terms of apps. We have then our student planner app for sixth form. Then students have their own individual login to this. They can download it from the App Store or from Google Play. And then there students take real ownership of their studies and of their organisation. Now in here, students then will not only record their to-do list in terms of essays and assignments and other tasks, then they will also very shortly have their individual timetable through the app. Then one of the beauties of the app is that I can communicate with students on a much more targeted approach. So if I wanted to only send information then to Year 12 students studying biology, for example, then the app would let me do that. And I think that's a much more targeted approach and it gives students real ownership of the information that they need then to help them make decisions and to help them make the most progress across all their subjects. So, I'll certainly ask your sons and daughters to make sure they have the app, and if they haven't, then it's an essential tool, I think, for sixth form life. Looking at some key dates between now and the end of this year in the summer, go extremely fast. So far then, we've sent home details of the students' initial grade collection, which was based on a baseline assessment, and that was either students were satisfactory, a cause for concern, or good. Then their first A-level grades in their subjects, then they will receive in their assessments on the 7th of December, so over the course of that week. Then it's important that students then are preparing for that assessment. Students then with conversation with their subject teacher should know exactly the content of that assessment, and now start to look at the progress, so that progress track, I suppose, where students aim to be at the end of Year 13, and now they start on that in earnest. The end of the term for us this year is the 18th of December. We then return to college on the 4th of January. And that grade collection from the start of December will be communicated to parents on the 18th of January along in the following few days. Then we will have our tutors in Year 12 will be calling parents then for a conversation not only about grades, but in general well-being of students. Are there any issues that a student would need any further help and support? And also then making sure for students then that they are fully prepared then for all their studies. The half term in mid-Feb then comes up very fast, and then following that we have our college inset day on the 19th of March. So students will be off college that day working from home while staff then have their training day. And that first term then, or second term, will end on the 1st of April for the start of the Easter holidays. Beyond Easter, looking towards the end of the summer, then we come back on the 19th. There'll be a full written report to parents on the 26th of April. Then prior to that half term at the end of May, start of June. And then we read the major assessment then for Year 12 is the end of year exams, which will start on the 7th of June. This will be over perhaps a week to a 10-day period. Students will receive their individual timetables. And the importance of the Year 12 exams is that it determines progression into Year 13. We are looking for students then by this stage then to make sure that not only are they fully prepared, but the desire is there to continue their studies to Year 13. And for a student then who doesn't fare very well, and we're looking at students primarily who would get an E or a U grade, then there is the option to resit on the 21st of June. It's key for us that we make sure that students then start Year 13 really with a realistic chance then of progress by the end of Year 13. Any students where that's not the case, there's always a conversation with the students themselves and with parents about then what will be the appropriate next steps. Then summer term, then the grade report to parents is following the mocks or following those end of Year 12 exams is the 7th of July, and the term ends on the 16th. Now, for me, the key issues for Year 12 this year, that transition from GCSE to sixth form is a big jump, without a doubt. And even more so this year with on the back of the lockdown that we've experienced from February, March time, then students will find it difficult to adjust back into not only a full academic life, but also the idea of GCSEs to A-levels. That is, even in the best of times, is still a significant jump. And there are a few key things that I think for students to focus on that will make their life more productive and certainly easier. Attendance for us is a key aspect. Then, at the very least, we're looking for students to have 95% attendance. Then, for A-level teaching in particular, then students can't really afford then to miss lessons, then unless it's absolutely essential. Now, there will be occasions where students have events that can't be avoided but to happen during the college day. We ask that any medical appointments or dentist appointments are, if possible, are done at the end of the day. But in terms of attendance, then, if student has a known absence, then they have to complete a leave of absence form. And that's evidence-based, so that we know that absence is authorised on our behalf. Any unexplained absence, then without doubt, then we contact parents. It's important for me that three-way partnership between ourselves and students and parents, that there's no surprises, and that we all then certainly want the best for the student then regarding progression. Punctuality is key as well. This is not only preparation for university, but preparation for the world of work. In sixth form, students then take responsibility for their own punctuality, and they can't blame others. So at the start of the day in particular, then I am extremely keen to make sure that students make full use of that relationship with their form tutor. And that first 10-15 minutes of the day, then for sixth form in particular, then so much information, which is crucial, comes via the form tutor. So for me, it's non-negotiable that students should be on site at 10 to 9 ready in their form rooms. That's dead important. One thing that students sometimes struggle with is the difference from at GCSE, where the students had their entire day mapped out by lessons. Now in sixth form, then the majority of students will have around 8 hours of non-contact time. Then now we ask students that they allocate 5 hours of those 8 for independent study. But if a student is in college, that student should be in lesson. There's no reason why they would not be in lesson. Then, and the only way you would say never to be in lesson would be then if that has been discussed with the head of the year. But for students then to not go to lessons and sit in the common room then is just not an option. Then, and again, in terms of uniform, for sixth form, it's interesting to see that whatever sixth form do, either regarding uniform or behaviour, then is replicated or copied by lower school students. I'm extremely happy then that sixth form students are the role models for our lower school students. But I want to make sure that that's a good role model. And uniform, then our uniform code is quite clear and quite minimalist in some ways. And so we expect sixth formers then to follow those and not to interpret it as they wish. And in particular, that's in terms of then, non-uniform then attire, so either in terms of hoodies or sweatshirts, then those shouldn't be the case. I really want to discuss with students about uniform issues as bigger things that I think are more important. In terms of behaviour, then of course, then if there is cause for concern, then either in terms of attitude or a student in terms of production of coursework or homework, or the missed lessons when they're on site or uniform, then not only subject staff but pastoral staff then will flag up those behaviour. And that initially is a conversation between the form tutor and the student, or the head of year or assistant head of year and the student, and for us to address that as quick as possible and then to move on. I'm more interested then in how do we celebrate achievements from students, and what I want students then to focus on is that development of skills regarding independent working, then which will be such a huge benefit then when it comes to university, then or the world of work or apprenticeships. And research skills as well. It's not a case of students waiting for staff to tell them what to do, but students who have chosen these subjects at A-level to go off and research themselves, then to find out their points of interest. I also want students then to contribute to our community. Then, we give students in sixth form lots of responsibility, then lots of privilege, and I think it's only fair that there's a payback in terms of then how they contribute then to the greater good. And we're looking for students then in whatever areas. Certainly prior to restrictions at the moment, we had sixth form students who were not only prefects then for lunchtime or break time, but they'd also assist in reading then with year 7 students, or they go into classrooms for Key Stage 3 lessons to contribute then to students' development. And I'm keen for that to happen again if and when then those restrictions are lifted. But also I want to see progress there, and for students, as I said before, then to maximise their progress. And students, this is for their own self-interest, you could argue, in that I want them to have the progress that allows them the full range of opportunities at the end of year 13. We are without a doubt a 2-year stepping stone to bigger and better things. And I want students to make sure that their opportunities are as full as possible then at the end of the 2-year process. In terms of support for students, then we offer a huge range of support from initially then subject staff. If it's a subject issue, then students should approach their staff teachers, their subject teachers. Also then their form tutors that a student will see every single day. That becomes, I think, to me a central pivot in then organisation of their work, and also then to deal with any issues that arise. And that conversation, I think, is extremely important for students. In terms of careers, said before, then I have Mrs. Green, who's available at any point to discuss with a student then careers options. Then she's not going to tell students then what career they should have, but she will point to students then where they can go and research further then those careers interests. Also, as I said before, we have our sixth form team and an on-site college counsellor then for students who need a bit more in-depth or specialised support, then either regarding mental health or anxiety. Then Mrs. Hughes then is for us an invaluable asset, and students then can make use of her. Looking at opportunities then beyond the academic sphere, initially we're saying to students then to organise their own study time. Now I know at the moment we've allowed students then to leave college after their final lesson of the day if that's before 3:20. And it's important that students then use that time when they get home to work and not just see it as further relaxation time. Then it's important that students then organise themselves. The app is a fantastic way to do that. Then, or if students have paper planners, they can use that as well. But students must be investing 5 hours per week per subject outside of lessons. Now that's going to cover then their homework tasks, but that should also cover them independent study time in college or elsewhere. In college then we're quite fortunate in that we have a number of places for Year 12 students to study, whether it's the main school library or there are a number of available classrooms then on every timetabled hour of the day for students to go and work quiet. The common room, nice as it is a place of socialisation, not a place of academic work. So if students are telling you that they're spending their time in the common room working, it's not productive work. For students to get involved and to contribute, then we have our student council. This year at the moment, it's broken down to a Year 12 council and a Year 13 council. And this is for students then to, I suppose, really to say what they want in terms of how they want the sixth form to work. Then I have my ideas what I'd like sixth formers to do, then but I want sixth form students themselves to take a sense of ownership. But this is more than just a list of student demands in sixth form. This is how they can embrace then the whole school community and how they can come to the fore and ensure that they are real role models. From the Easter onwards, then we give students the opportunity to start to look at the extended project qualification. Now, for students who are applying for highly competitive courses, this will give you the edge. This is a piece of coursework. It's a 5,000 word dissertation. Then it comes with an AS equivalent to UCAS points, but the real skill or the real value is in the research skills that a student will gain then in this project. Students can choose the topic they wish, so therefore if they want to show their real sense of passion for a subject or their real sense of interest, then the EPQ is the perfect vehicle for that. So more information to students round about Easter of next year. Looking at those who intend to go to university, then we have real strong links with all of our Northeast universities. And we encourage students then to look at the various progression programs that those universities offer. And sometimes by partaking in some of those schemes, students will receive lower offers in terms of grades. Now, we make those available to students. Students can take them if they wish, but I strongly recommend that students then who are looking at those universities make themselves more than aware of those projects. And for students who want to apply for Oxford and Cambridge, then the Oxnet project, again, it gives students then information and guidance and also the skills just that goes beyond pure subject choices. And this is the management of work for students. This is over and above their three subjects. So it does take a bit of organisation, a bit of planning about how to prioritise your tasks. But again, these are key skills which are beneficial for use for future, whether it's university or employment. Round about after Easter and the summer half term, we start to turn our minds then to university applications. And we start to get students to draft up their personal statements. So for that first point about how they can make themselves attractive to universities in terms of the skills they have to offer. We guide them through the process. Then we'll spend quite a large amount of time looking at the personal statement process, then how to craft that best possible statement. It will go through a number of drafts with a student's academic referee and form tutor. Fairly shortly, students will have access to a website called Yr12. And on this website, students can now start to record whatever skills they gain between now and next year. That will be invaluable then for their personal statements. Then any activities they do either organised through college or on a personal level, then they can start to record. On Unifrog, students can research universities. For those who are looking at apprenticeships, then there are live vacancies for apprenticeships on Unifrog, and those students should be using that website then to craft up their personal statement, but also then a CV and a welcoming letter then for any job or apprenticeship. So it's important that students are matched to that website. And of course, the parents and carers, then you can ask them to look at their entries on there to make sure that they are using it to the maximum extent. In terms of balance, then sixth form without a doubt is a difficult 2 years, absolutely. And there are things that students can do. I think I'm keen that students don't become just purely academic. It's important that they have a sense of balance in terms of their work time and non-work time. And there are certain things, especially now over the winter period, that students can do to make sure that things are easy for themselves, not least in terms of daylight. In terms of college, okay, there's minimal options to be outside, but at least at lunchtime or break time, then students should try and expose themselves to more daylight than not. So rather than just hanging in the common room, we have a sixth form garden area, which even when the weather's a bit cool outside, it's better to be outside and to get some fresh air and a bit of daylight then that helps then their kind of mental state. Exercise then, without doubt, is key then to a balance in terms of a healthy life. Then a student then who would exercise, then even in sort of minimal terms, they will find the benefit then for their academic study. And that goes hand in hand with healthy eating. You know, diet is extremely important. Then, so healthy eating for students then becomes, again, and this is, you know, their responsibility. This becomes key then to a whole package then of a balanced approach to their life. And sleep patterns. You know, it's important then that students, it's awful to see sixth form students who look, you know, half dead in lessons because obviously the focus isn't quite there, they're not taken in. And often in sixth form lessons, I would suggest that a lot of information comes through conversation between staff and students, or conversations then between students and students. So if they're not quite focused, they miss those, I suppose, those nuggets of information, those gems. And the important thing for me is that constant contact between friends and family. You know, for students then to share their thoughts, this becomes crucial in terms of like a shared approach then to any difficulties. And at the end of that process then, you know, I said before, for students then who need to seek help, then if you need, then, you know, the support mechanism I mentioned before, either through subject staff or through the pastoral program or our on-site counsellor, then it's important that students then, you know, get over that hurdle sometimes and just come and ask for help. There is a lot of things that as a sixth form staff we can do to make smooth then any issue then in terms of sixth form. Looking final on then, again, based on the current restrictions, not quite sure then what will happen at the end of the summer term. Normally we would have work experience then, which is a great opportunity for students to go and either confirm or maybe be turned off then by what they thought was a future career. Then, and again, I'll say that's for students, that's their responsibility. It's not parents to go and find then a work placement for a student, it's them. And the hard task is, you know, making that phone call, writing that email, sending that letter. Then, and the earlier they start that, the better. If the restrictions are lifted, then, you know, it may be possible then to take part in work experience. Then, if not, it might be a virtual experience. But again, sixth form students should now start to look out for those kind of opportunities at this stage. I would say that the earlier that you start, then the more chance you have of getting a valuable placement compared to something that's just last minute. Now, we will talk with students in much more detail about this over the coming weeks. But again, it's important as parents and carers then that you encourage your sons and daughters to find some meaningful engagement with the world of work then before the end of the summer term. Then, and the skills they will gain from that will be useful when they come to apply for university courses or for employment or for apprenticeships. Finally, just to say that if you have any further questions regarding sixth form, then I would say your first protocol would be Mr. Dent as the head of year, then, and you know, he can be contacted then either by phoning college or by emailing then the general sixth form mailbox that was on the first screen. Can I just finish by thanking you then for your support that you give to your sons and daughters, and also your support to the college. For me, then, the best way that we can maximise the success and progress of students is by working in partnership then between the three of us. That's ourselves as a college, students, and by parents. Thank you very much.